Now that we've created the main concrete floor slab, I think it's probably pertinent that we move on and create the remaining floor slabs. You can see each one of these, we've got a floor slab out here for the veranda. We've also got another floor which we're going to have created separately and sitting on top of the floor, the concrete slab of the house. One for the ensuite, one for the bathroom and one for the laundry. We'll also do one for the kitchen. Now note, CT stands for ceramic tiles. In fact, that should be part of our legend. Yes, good. And 300 refers to the side. So if it's 300, that means it's a 300 by 300 tile. So we're going to need to create 3 different hatch patterns so that we give an accurate impression of what the floor patterns are going to look like. So we need to create one that's 300 by 345, one that's 300 by 300 and at 0, and then one at 150 by 150. So I'm going to create the first floor and the first hatch pattern as the veranda, and then we'll move on to the bathrooms and the laundry. So I'm coming up to the architecture tab, I'm coming to floor, I want to create a separate one to this concrete slab, so I'm going into type and duplicate. And I'm going to call it BV Verandah Slab. I need to create a completely separate one because if I was to edit the previous one, it would then edit every version of that. Edit the structure. Let's select our preview here. Now there's a number of different ways I could make this. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm just going to have the 2 layers here, even though of course the tile would sit on a sand cement screed and then have the concrete structure. I'm just going to have 2 layers to keep things simple. So I've hit insert once to generate another layer, and I'm going to use with that one highlighted, see number 4 is highlighted, to move it up so that it sits up and above that core boundary. So I'm going to leave this one here as cast in situ 150. Again, I would come back and easily update that when I get information back from the engineer. This is the one I want to play with. I want to create a finish, so the function tells Revit exactly what it is it's doing. That'll help generate line types later and pull other additional information in. The thickness, let's just make 20 mil, even though that's probably not the thickness of this tile. That's all I need to worry about because I'm only really looking at this particular floor in plan. You can see that this extra layer has been created over here, and then up here in material, this is where I need to start creating my own. So we're not creating a realistic view in this particular assessment, so I don't need to worry about the appearance here. What I am going to do is worry about the graphics. So the graphics is what appears in 3D view as the shading, surface pattern is what appears in elevation and plan, and cut pattern is what appears when we slice through it, so whether that's in elevation section or plan section. So I'm just going to create a very simple floor by coming down to the bottom here. You can see creates and duplicates material, and this one is going to create a fresh one for us, and by fresh I mean you can see it's called a default new material, and under all of these items you can see that nothing is checked. So ordinarily I would start with something from this library or from the template file. You can see I just click that little button up here. It turns the library on. I would start with that and modify it, but I'm just starting very simply today. So it was down here, create and duplicate material. So the first thing I need to do is give it a name. I'm going to preface everything I do today with a BV. That includes my materials. It'll make it easier for me to find. It'll sit alphabetically one underneath each other. So the first one was called ceramic tile 300 by 300, and I'm going to nominate that it's at 45 degrees. I can change my description if I want to. I was just clicking on the drop down box. That's just It won't change anything as far as it appears. It will be information that we could draw on later as far as material footing and floor slab. So back to my graphics tab that we move on and create this is the surface change that material. You can see each one of these has got a floor slab out here for the veranda. What I want to do is try and find another hatch pattern, which we're going to have black line that we're separating on top of this. We've got a choice of drafting at the house or through one for the ensuite. So model is what we're going to be using. So now you can see that we're starting to add that hatch pattern model. That model will be exactly now as we slice through. We're going to set one up whatever interval we need to. We've already got printed out the word and 300 or 150 so it's 300 rule on it. Now by selecting this wall, so I'm going to edit drafting properties. Three different hatch exactly whatever I do so that we once I so it's particularly good for concrete. Whatever I do in when we look at it, we'll then adjust every 200 by 300. We can tell that it's a basic hatch pattern, and then when we come down to 1 to 5, it scales itself accordingly so we can still read it. So I'm going to create. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using most first hatch pattern. I'm moving into the veranda, and I need to be in that section view. So if you're not, change it from see this drop down here. Change it fairly simple, coming up to the architecture tab, and then by rolling my wheel, I'll give it a name, and holding the cursor right onto this concrete slab, 300. It's difficult to zoom in this particular view, so I'm using a combination of zooming in. The line angle is 45, and the line spacing is 300. So now that I always try and name whatever I'm creating, finish layer, so when I go and plug in the other information later on, I need to create a completely separate structure. If I was to edit, we do want to be able to manipulate where the brickwork starts and edit the structure as well. So this is the layer I'm after. Here. I'm going to. There's a number of different ways out of models. I'm going to OK. So I created a new material. I'm just going to have the two lines here, even though CT, of course, the BV for veneer, CT for ceramic tile. Click on that again. You can see 300 structure. 300 is the size of the unlock it and 45 degrees. So if you insert once to generate a material amount by rolling that one, and then in addition to that, I created a hatch pattern up here on the material. Whilst I'm here, later on 300 by 300 and 45 degrees. So they're two separate things. I'm going to leave this one here as K. Select that blue line. And of course I created a floor slab called brick veneer. Now you can see this is the one I want to play with. I want to, if I wanted, create a finish. So the function tells Revit to see exactly what it is it's doing. Magnetizes to the top of that line types later, and you can see that everything's lining up, even though the thickness is hovering over. It's got that highlighted mill. And of course I want that to sit not right on the edge tiles. So I need to roll back because I'm only really looking at this particular. Not least, we need to have a set down. So editing that has been created. Gave the ability and then up here to be able to move independently. Last time we did this, we went from this is where I have the wall of the object straight out. Changed. So now we need 100 mil over here. Number of ways of doing them in this particular. If I click on this one, I don't need to worry about the I can see here this basic. This time we're in an L-shaped house. Negative 100 is worry about the graphics. So the graphics is what a fairly easy way of doing that. 3D select all shading. That way, surface pattern is what appears in elevation. I want to fall away from those two walls. What I'm going to do appears on the project, like we did last time. Obviously, in this particular one, elevation section or plan section. And down here, so I'm just going to create a very simple floor. Incidentally, comes down to the bottom here and create till we edit material over here in our property. And this one is going to another way of doing that for us. Might have been to use the edit fresh. So the offset is negative 100. Modify. And under all of these items, properties looks and works exactly like match properties. So ordinarily, I would start with something from this library or from the template set down of 100 mil plus an additional 50 mil falls across that library on. I would start with that and modify it, but I'm just click on the wall that I want it to be like. Down here, then I click on the create and now got the floor. The first thing I need to do is give it a name. I'm going to, of course, preface everything I do today with the BV that includes it in our 3D view as well. And it's a nice pale grey, which means it won't overpower the drawing. So the first one was called ceramic tile, and if it gets too heavy, 300, those hatch patterns, which aren't meant to be very significant information, but it's at 45 degrees. Structural information. I can change my description if I want to. It's just clicking on the drop down box. That's
concrete
just
sitting underneath.
won't change anything
Finish,
as far as it
which is
appears.
the
It will be
material
information
created
that we could
called
draw on
BV
later as
ceramic
far as
tile,
material
300
schedules
by
and
300, and that
so
material
back to my
had
graphics
a hatch pattern.
This is the surface pattern that I want to deal with.
That was
so
300
on
by
pattern,
300 at 45. So
and what I want to do is try and find a hatch pattern.
I mentioned that twice because
that
it's
is
easy for
300
that
by
to get
300, but there's a
confusing.
good chance that's not there. We've got a choice of drafting patterns or fill patterns. So model is what we're going to be using, because when you draw in using a hatch pattern that's a model, that model will be exactly to scale. So if we're going to set one up that's 300 by 300, it doesn't matter whether we print it out at 1 to 200 or 1 to 50. If we pop a scale rule on it, it will always scale at 300 by 300. The drafting is suited for exactly what it says, drafting. So it's particularly good for concrete, so that when we look at it for 1 to 100 or 1 to 200, we can tell that it's a concrete hatch pattern. And then when we come down to 1 to 5, it scales itself accordingly, so we can still read it rather than blowing it up. So it models what you're going to be using most of the time. I don't have a 300 by 300, which means I'm now going to have to create my own hatch pattern. So that's fairly simple. I'm going new. I'm giving it a name, 300 by 300 at 45. The line angle is 45 and the line spacing is 300. So now that I always try and name whatever I'm creating, so that when I go and plug in the other information later on, it's just a matter of following what it's called, and it keeps it quite simple. We do want a crosshatch, so I need to make my line spacing for 300 as well. So I've created that as a model, and OK. So I created a new material that's called BV CT, so BV for brick veneer, CT for ceramic tile, brick veneer is the project name, 300 by 300 is the size of the tile, and 45 degrees is the angle. I created a material called that, and then in addition to that I created a hatch pattern to appear on the material that is 300 by 300 at 45 degrees. So they're two separate things. And OK, and OK. And of course I created a floor slab called brick veneer veranda slab. So I created three separate things. Now I'm going to draw it. I might use the rectangle command. Right, you can see that everything's lining up, even though you can see it's hovering over and it's got that highlighted. And of course I want that to sit right on the edge of the house. Last but not least, we need to have a set down. So over here I'm going to pop a slope arrow. Now last time we did this, we went from the wall of the house straight out, and we dropped it down by 100 mil over here, and then it dropped a further 50 mil, so that there was a 50 mil fall on the slab, and we stepped out 100. This time we're in an L-shaped house, so I just noticed that wasn't sitting right. So I actually want it to fall that way and that way. I want it to fall away from those two walls. So what I'm going to do is just like we did last time, except I'm going to take it from the corner, and I'm going to take it to the other corner. So we refer to this as the tail, and this is the head. So over here in our properties, height at tail, the offset is -100, and the height at head, this is our head, the offset will be -150. Right, so that -150 is the set down of 100 mil plus an additional 50 mil to fall across that slab edge. Sorry, just a slab, not a slab edge. And you can see that when we create that, we've now got a floor. Let's go and have a look at that in 3D as well. Of course, we've used the model drafting hatch. We should be able to see it in our 3D view as well. And it's a nice pale grey, which means it won't overpower the drawing when it prints. And if it gets too heavy, those hatch patterns, which aren't meant to be very significant information, not as significant as structural information. So we've created a floor type that has the concrete sitting underneath, a finish, which is the material created, called BV ceramic tile 300 by 300, and that material had a hatch pattern that was 300 by 300 at 45. So 3 separate things just happened there. I mentioned that twice because it's easy for that to get confusing.